my gosh, guys, you're driving me crazy.
Wow, that was so unprofessional. And although we've been accustomed to hearing the phrase, actions speak louder than words, words have the unique capability of either raising up an individual or tearing them down. Thus, in today's society, words do speak louder than actions. During face-to-face interactions, we have the aid of facial expressions and hand gestures to help convey our message. However, on an online platform, words are stripped down to their basic meaning. Thus, it is very important that we are careful of what we say. During an online survey of over 100 of our peers, we have determined that the two main causes of negative speech include emotional stress through frustration, sadness, anxiety, anger, or just being stuck in a habit. Over 80% of these participants have stated that they have said something in the heat of the moment that they had almost instantly regretted and wished they could take back. Negative speech is detrimental to others and one's true intentions, as it lowers self-esteem, it puts a strain on relationships, it causes an emotional epidemic, as well as it provides hostile environments.
What if there was a way to ensure that you communicated exactly what you wanted to say, even in times of heightened emotional state? What if you had a tool that would help you put forth the best version of yourself online? Introducing our product, Mindful. It comes in the form of a browser extension and a mobile keyboard that uses sentiment analysis to provide alerts when you type a negative message before you hit send. Mindful applies the behavioral economics concept of a nudge to alert the user of the cost of using negative speech in everyday communication. A nudge is a non-invasive choice regulation strategy that doesn't restrict any user options. Rather, it provides an intervention or an additional set of steps that the user must go through in order to perform their desired course of action, which in this case is sending a negative message. According to the Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience Journal, reappraisal of a situation significantly reduces the intensity of negative feeling, allowing for emotional regulation. So, as much as I would like to believe that I have a lot of self-control online, in the moment, I may be tempted to type a negative message and send it to my friends. But with Mindful, I will get this pop-up reminder that will allow me to rethink my course of action, allowing me to take a proactive rather than a reactive approach, and will allow me to not regret the consequences after the fact. I can also set goals for myself using Mindful by adding words and phrases that I would like to use less of. I can also track my progress on these goals over time.
So overall, Mindful will be valuable to not only organizations, namely educational institutions and companies, but also individual users such as students, employees, and those in positions of power, as their speech generally affects those around them. When looking at organizations specifically, it was found that two prominent issues they face are bullying and harassment. This is despite the existence of mandated HR policies and codes of conduct in place to help combat against these issues. It was found that 60% of Canadian employees endure some form of harassment, with 40% reporting bullying each week. In schools, it was found that cyberbullying and cyberstalking were the most predominant, with 20% of students citing its existence. One of the largest effects that negative speech can have on an organization is that of a tarnished brand image. This was explicitly seen with the New York Times when they were found defending one of their employees who had a past history of making discriminatory comments against Caucasian people. Many took this to believe that the New York Times was siding with the reporter's belief, and as such, following these chain of events, there was a drastic drop in stock price as shown on the right. This was also seen with the Chrysler brand as well, when one of its employees accidentally tweeted from the company homepage instead of his own personal account that those in Detroit did not know how to drive despite living in the Motor City. Although many did find the tweet to be humorous, those living in Detroit definitely did not, and the entire situation caused unwanted negative media attention towards the brand. When we reached out to the general public to gather their views on negative speech, it was found that those who did engage in the behavior desired to stop, with 84% feeling that using negative speech affected how they were seen and how people interacted with them. And 90% of the online survey respondents felt that if negative speech was reduced, so would bullying and harassment instances as well.
Mindful is both free and a paid service. For the paid service, it's about $8 a month for an annual term, or $15 a month if they just want to try for a few months. And for the paid service, we provide more intensity levels of checks, and also we provide user with performance stats. So this would be helpful for the parents if they want to monitor their kids on how they perform on social media. Next, our goal is to reach public through first social media. That includes Instagram ads, our own website, and public relations. And then later on, once we have a refined product, we would reach out to NGOs, HR of the organizations, as well as schools. So this is our prediction in terms of revenue. We predict that we'd be profitable in just about a year. There's less capital needed to start the business. It's only about $120,000. So, and we predict that we'd be profitable of around $3 million in about 5 years. This is a tentative timeline for the year 2019. We predict that we would be launching the product in about 3 to 4 months, and we would have the product ready by September. This is around when the school starts as well. And we predict that we would have at least 4,000 paid customers and at least 10,000 overall customers.
So together, we're Team Mindful, and we're a group of engineering students who witness the impact and usage of negative speech each day. We realize that this is a growing problem over time, and as such, a solution is needed now. And that solution is Mindful. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. First of all, thank you for that pitch. That was great. I guess one question I had was around your projections around the 10,000 and 4,000, specifically the 4,000 paid customers. You mentioned a number of different groups and a number of ways to get to your target audience. But of the 4,000, like, do you see that? Like, what kind of customers do you see are going to be paying? Is it going to be institutions? Is it going to be parents? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. We predict that it would be mainly organizations and schools. So first, for the 2019, just as to launch the product, we would be mainly targeting the schools at first. So that would be mainly schools and also organizations. And parents, in terms of, we don't predict that much of people coming from that point of view, but our main goal will be to reach out to the organizations and institutions. That's our main goal, and we predict that this is how we made our data. So this is just our tentative numbers that we used.
So our plan is that we do generally want to give people a free trial just to get used to it and see if they do deem it worthy. But for schools, since they're a harder audience to cater to, we felt that it would be best to give them a 3-month free trial opposed to giving them the 1-month free trial that we're giving the individual users.
Sorry, just to add on to that. So schools would be like high schools then, or okay, and then it would be on school-owned devices or computers, or where would it be installed?
So it's mainly they pay for the account, so they mainly they can install it in their on their own computers and on their own laptops. And also they can also give the account to each user, so they would pay for the subscription for each student for the account that they buy. And for that, they can mainly for schools, you're not really allowed to use devices, so it would just mainly be their own devices in high school, especially. So they would have it already installed in their computer, so it would be per device.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Those are great questions.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's back on. So 2 follow-up questions related to what Pamela had asked. So the first question was around schools. So these are projections for 2019. I think it was last week the Ford government announced that they'll be banning cell phones in schools. So then how would that impact your projections? So that's my first question. And the second question deals with your target market of corporations or institutions. Within a professional setting, the reputation is very, we go through our lives and we always think about our reputation, and there's a consequence to us engaging in speech that perhaps may be inflammatory or considered uncivilized, and often, the consequence of that is you are shown the exit door. So then I guess my question is, how is this an incentive? Like, I mean, is the incentive not being fired enough that act as a barrier to prevent individuals from engaging in, I guess, negative speech, which is what your app is targeting? Or do you feel that people's emotions will be so, it would just drive them too much, I guess, that, you know, the whole risk around being fired, it's still an area that you can address via your app? If that makes sense.
Okay, so your first question was regarding the schools. So in these projections, what we targeted was more so the computer labs that schools do have. So in most high schools, especially in Toronto, they have like a designated computer lab, whether it be in the library, where there's around 30 computers that are there for students to use. So that is where we got our numbers to project from. So we catered it not so much for personal devices yet, but just for the general use of the devices that the schools have control of. In terms of the secondary question about the firing, that is one case for it, but it's almost like a proactive approach in the sense that this can be used to not just for your own reputation, but also it can help improve the working environment amongst people. Let's say I'm emailing a coworker and I say something that I necessarily don't find discriminatory or I think it's okay, but they might not. Mindful could help pick it up and then alert me that maybe this isn't the best choice. In that situation, I wouldn't necessarily get fired in the sense that it would only go so far if maybe the person reported it to HR or they decided to take the next step. But had they not, then all I did was really ruin the work environment that I had previously going.
1 minute left.
Personally, I'm also really bad at, like, I just joined PEY for like a couple of months now, and I often find myself using words that I probably shouldn't, and out of habit of being in school, and so I feel like Mindful would help me in that sense, that like although I'm not like scared to get fired, like it's embarrassing.
Thank you for that presentation. Just want to, I know that this is, you mentioned a bunch of things about anti-bullying and all the negative results of negative speech. I'm just wondering, this one nudge is certainly one way to help those who didn't intend to hurt to stop it. Any thoughts as to how to bridge the gap between that and the next nudge about how else to stop overall that type of, you know, some people who don't intend it, but then other people actually intend to hurt. Is there any things that you have built around that to help the schools to mitigate around that as well?
Intensity settings.
Yeah, well, they can always stop if they don't want to use this. They really do intend to send, a message that they really want to hurt someone. They can actually turn off the system, and not the system itself, but the application, and then they would be able to send the message regardless. So in that sense, this is just a nudge to help them out to see that do you really want to send this. So sometimes you're not thinking through when you were sending it, but if you're really, if that's your intention, you can always make it stop, and then you can also send it.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm afraid time is up. Thank you very much again, Mindful.